ES Audio.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio. Six Nations Special.
Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of the Evening Standard Rugby Podcast, live from London offices of QBE Business Insurance. We've an amazing lineup, and most amazingly, Sarra Elgan is back with us. Sarra?
Two amazings in one sentence.
I know. It's nice to have you back.
Thanks for having me back. You okay?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah.
Good. Well, lucky for you guys, it's not just us two that are here tonight. That would be very boring. We're also joined by Steve Corden from the Evening Standard. Hey, Steve.
Hello, Sarra.
And our very special guest this week is a supremely talented rugby player who's won pretty much everything, actually, there is to win in the game. So much, I'm going to have to read them all out. She's represented England in both the 15s and 7s game, won a World Cup in 2014, captain Team GB at the Rio Olympics, and a bronze medal at the Commonwealth Games, been named World Player of the Year in 2019. I haven't finished yet. Not to mention the numerous Six Nations and Grand Slam titles and 108 caps to her name. She's also the Red Roses' top point scorer of all time. It's who else? Emily Scarratt. Hi, Emily.
Hello.
That was some introduction.
That was a massive introduction. Thank you for that.
I'm actually out of breath. Okay, so lovely to have you here. Now, before we get to talk about rugby, we like to kind of find out what everyone's been up to this week. Steve, what have you been doing?
Snow, boilers don't go together, do they? No, this morning managed to build some...
How to lose the audience in one sentence.
I know. It started well, some snowmen in the garden with the kids, but then went back inside and the boiler wasn't working. Oh dear. The one thing to do, make sure you get a contract. My wife said to me, have you sorted that contract out yet? Yes, I'll do it. But I hadn't done it. And now we've got a big bill. And
so you're not going home tonight, are you?
No. So if anybody wants to come for some more drinks later on, I think I'm probably better off going home when she's gone to bed. So yeah, there was that. And then obviously I'm still recovering from the football result of the weekend. I know we're here to talk about rugby, but I'm still sore about that one, 7-0.
Are you a Man U supporter?
Yes.
I've learned something today. Oh,
so I've had all manner of jokes about Seven. I didn't know there was that many. 7-Up. He's now called Eric Sevenhaag. Yeah, there's more of them, but it's been a tough week. Long's all right because he's got 2 wins on the bounce now.
Well,
Chelsea,
I guess what you've told them is that you're 7 points ahead of Liverpool at the moment in the league, aren't you? Really, that's the best way to.
That's the 7 I forgot. Yeah.
So yes, I'm a Chelsea fan, but we shall move on.
What have you been doing then, Lawrence?
Well, I was working back on BT Sport the weekend, so.
Oh, you graced us with your presence, did you?
I did, yes.
Didn't have anything else to do.
I'm still recovering, actually. I was lucky enough to see the big game, 14, at Twickenham, which I thought was an outstanding game. Marcus Smith promptly putting the onus back on Steve Borthwick. It's just an amazing performance from a young man, wasn't it? You know, he's obviously picked against Scotland, put on the bench against Italy, and then given 1 minute against Wales. Then he's told to go back to his club and show us what you can do, and I think he's emphatically done that. So, very impressed.
Yeah,
Did you get one of those shirts that Sister Bliss had on? That was amazing, wasn't it?
I want one of those. They were awesome.
Sparkly.
Yeah, what Lawrence hasn't told you as well, almost as interesting as Steve Boyler's story, is that he went to see the hygienist this week.
I mean, honestly, I've not got a breath problem or anything. Don't worry about that.
How was that for you?
I went to have my teeth cleaned. Yeah, perfect.
Lovely. Okay, so that was a really interesting week
she's
you've
South
had.
African, and she bullied me basically, like most of her rugby players, really.
That sounds interesting, actually. Okay, so boiler, hygienist, and this one here, you've been somewhere very special today, Emily. Slightly more interesting than visiting the dentist. Where have you been?
Yeah, I've been to Buckingham Palace. I know.
Ooh.
Yeah.
To do what?
So obviously International Women's Day, we'd already been lined up, a few of us that are injured at the moment, to go and do a bit at Twickenham for the staff, for their inclusion and diversity, all of that sort of stuff. So there was me and 2 other players, and then my manager called me last week and was like, oh, we've been invited to Buckingham Palace, so we're going to re-divert you. We'll keep the other 2 there, but we're going to re-divert you to Buckingham Palace. So those 2 were absolutely fuming that they had to still go and talk to the RFU staff. So Camilla was there. There was myself and Vicky Cornborough. I saw the lady from Antiques Roadshow, Fiona Bruce.
Okay.
Yeah,
Bruce,
saw her. And the canapes were fantastic. So it was, a nice afternoon.
How was your curtsy?
It wasn't great. No, it wasn't great.
Did you speak to Camilla?
Yeah.
Was she like?
Yeah, she was all right. She's tiny.
All right.
She's tiny.
Is
so,
she?
and obviously a busy room. She's quite softly spoken. So if I'm honest, I couldn't really hear a huge amount of what she was saying. But
she was all right.
I think she was loving rugby. Yeah, that's the vibe I got.
Good. So there you go. Then Emily's had a slightly more interesting week than you.
Well, I remember going to the Palace years ago, obviously. I think it was post 2003. And we were invited to tea with the Queen, which was amazing. And this is a true story, although it gets sort of slightly elaborated on. One of the servicemen, went to Mark Regan and he said, Earl Grey, sir? Mark Regan being from Bristol, a bit of a thick hooker. He said, Earl Grey, sir? He goes, no, Mark Regan's my name.
It's actually true.
It's like that.
That's one of the best stories I've ever heard you say.
Well, thank you very much. It's true, yes.
Right, let's move on quickly then. Put some rugby questions to our guests, shall we, Lawrence?
Yes, we will. Emily, we've obviously heard about your career. We're going to look forward to the Women's Six Nations, but I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't go back to the World Cup in New Zealand, because obviously you were going there as favourites. I guess there was only inevitably going to be. I mean, if everything went to plan, you looked like you were going to play New Zealand in the final. That's exactly what happened, and it was, I guess, just one decision really that changed the outcome of the game. To be honest, it was that close. This obviously doesn't make you feel any better about it, but when you reflect on, I heard the other day. I mean, you've won a World Cup, so there is a slight difference when you obviously feel very sad about it because you'd like to win another one, but when you get in the changing room and you get home, you kind of go, well, it's not the end of the world, but I suppose it just feels like it. I mean, what was it like out there, and could you have done anything differently, do you think?
I think, first of all, the whole tournament was unbelievable. I think going to New Zealand, we obviously knew the tradition that rugby has down there and, how well sought after it is, etc. But they haven't really got a hold of the women's game yet over there. So it's kind of a bit of an unknown in terms of the tournament, the locations of some of the games. We were up in Whangarei, which is rural, to say the least. But it was unbelievable. The attendances were fantastic. The quality of rugby was brilliant. And then obviously making the final. And we didn't warm up out on the pitch. We warmed up out on the cricket pitch outside the stadium. So we had no idea what the stadium looked like. And it wasn't until we literally walked out for the anthems that we realised it was packed full of 44,000, pretty much 44,000 Kiwis and probably 30 of our friends and family. But it was an unbelievable atmosphere. Obviously, we did go there to win it, so the overwhelming feeling is absolutely gutted that we fell short by, a score in the final. Red card obviously didn't help, but actually we still could have won the game without that. The line out at the end, again, how well our driving line out had gone and all the press that it had got in terms of England have got nothing else than a driving line out, and then that's the thing that unfortunately doesn't quite get us over the line at the end, was tough. But reflect on it two different ways. Gutted, but what a tournament.
I often wonder what a night after a final is like, because I think it's pretty obvious to say if you've won a final, be it a World Cup final,
remember.
it's pretty exciting. I'm not even going to go there with him to ask him what a night after a final's like. You don't know what you're going to get.
Motivation, isn't it, really? That's what the motivation is.
But Emily, what was that night like? Because obviously you've got the elation of getting to a final, but then the bitter disappointment of coming so close. So what do you do after a game like that?
Win or lose on the booze, isn't it?
Oh, there you go. There's the answer.
Look, it's hard, but I think it's really important. We were so lucky that we had so many friends and family out there. So what happened was all our friends and family had gone to I can't remember the name of the pub, but a pub in Auckland, and we just went and joined them, and it was just basically an English pub. There were a couple of Kiwis that I think wondered what on earth was going on in there. But it was just us, and it was a nice opportunity. If you wanted to sit and mope in the corner, you could do that. If you wanted to have a dance and get amongst it, you could do that. So everybody reacts differently to things like that, and inevitably the weeks after also are the tough ones.
I know you won't say this, but England, for those who didn't watch the final, England got a red card and they were down to 14. New Zealand should have had a red card in the second half. No doubt about that. It should have been 14 apiece, and I do think that home advantage, that's kind of the decisions that go your way. And I guess that will give you even more motivation to try and make maybe even another World Cup.
Yeah, we host in 2025, which is, I'm 33. I'm kind of on that very close borderline of whether we're looking at retirement or looking at continuing to play. But I think that opportunity is a hell of an opportunity. I played in 2010 when we hosted. Obviously, the growth of the game then, it wasn't great, but it was unbelievable. So I can only imagine what 2025 is going to be like.
You've also got the challenge at the moment of being injured, as Sarra mentioned. We were swapping stories earlier about prolapse discs. Do you want to share with everybody exactly what you've done and why you're not playing at the moment?
That's another good one, yeah.
I know.
Unfortunately, I've got a neck issue at the moment, which is keeping me out. It's a frustrating one because it doesn't have a timeline attached to it, so it's not like rest for 6 weeks, 6 months, and it'll be fine. It's very much an unknown. Could be better tomorrow, could take months and months. So frustrating one to get your head around. Obviously the girls going into the Six Nations very shortly. My favourite time of the year. I love playing in that competition. So gutted not to be there, but hopefully we'll still be in and amongst it.
You'll be there in some capacity though, will you? Or are you going to be coaching? Is that part of the plan? Or are you carrying the water?
This coaching bit has got blown up, I'm not going to lie.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So basically myself and Abby Ward, who's pregnant, we're part of the leadership group normally, and we express, if they want to keep us around and be involved with some bits, then we're more than happy to do that, get involved. And then everybody has just ran with that. Went into camp on Monday, and all the girls were like, "Hey, coach, all right, boss, what are we doing, gaffer?" And I was just like, "Come on!" So we're just chipping in basically, like we normally would, but without obviously being able to do the bit on the field as well.
Well, Simon Middleton's going after the Six Nations, so they'll be looking for somebody to
there's
take
an opening.
over.
Yeah.
There's an opening.
See how that net goes.
Do you fancy that?
Not right now.
Not right now. No, not right now.
Still playing. Your team, the England team, the Six Nations kicks off. I think England plays Scotland, don't they, on the 25th of March. I think last season's tournament saw a real growth in the game. New title sponsor, a new broadcast deal. Do you feel like it's a bit of a moment in time with the World Cup as well, that the women's game has gone to another level in terms of its sort of general appeal? And
just going to say that game's actually sold out today. So
fantastic.
It's sold out.
Well, they might see an England team beat Scotland as well, which would be nice, wouldn't it? Fact.
Yes, in answer to your question, I think, last Six Nations we broke a record every time we were at home in terms of attendances and stuff like that, which is brilliant, and we'll keep doing that, selling out Newcastle. The Twickenham game, 40,000 tickets sold already, and hopefully that will continue to grow, because that could culminate in basically the Six Nations final if we get that far, and it'd be unbelievable.
Be amazing. So give us a couple of names of some stars of the women's game. Who do we look out for?
I think Marley Packer is always a good go-to, so she's going to be
I love watching her
co-captain
play and talk.
If she had
amazing.
she'd be brilliant. If she'd be her own Netflix series. If she had a ref mic on, it'd be amazing. You'd probably have to censor 75% of it, but yeah. So she's going to be brilliant. Co-captain, new role for her, but she always leads from the front. She's an absolute tyrant. And then probably someone like Holly Aitchison, who's probably going to step into that 10 role. Yesterday at training, she was doing non-contact, so she had the magic pink bib on, which we all want to have at some point. So non-contact, and she was just tearing up. She was on the side with less attackers, but was just little kick there, pass there, delayed ball, etc. So yeah, hopefully she can light up.
Steve's already mentioned that Simon Middleton stepping down. I mean, he's achieved some fantastic things with you guys. If you're writing his leaving card, what's the message you put on it?
Give me a job.
Hear this? Yeah. I think, for me personally, a massive thank you. He's been a part of the squad since 2014, might have even been 2013. I genuinely think we won the World Cup in 2014 because of him. Yeah, he wasn't in the head coach role then, and that's not to
why?
give the coaches
what
any
does
disservice.
He bring that would...
At that point, he just brought a different voice, but two, a level of detail that we didn't have. The game was in a very different place, and he brought in lots of new things and really made us raise our game. So a massive thank you. He went on to coach sevens, and by his own admission, he's definitely not a sevens coach, nor was I a sevens player, but we all gave it a go anyway. Yeah, he's done a huge amount. I'm really glad that he's able to go out on his own terms. I think there'd be if I could frame it and write it properly and have a bit of thought, I'd put some swear words in there as well, because he's not short of having a bit of an F and Jeff, but yeah, he's a good bloke.
You'll miss him.
Yeah.
Does it matter if the women are coached by a man or a woman? Would you rather have a woman in charge?
I'd rather have a woman if she's the right person for the job. Personally now, with this opportunity, both Scott and Mid's leaving, so potential backs coach, head coach, attack coach, whatever role they decide to come in at, I want to be coached by the best people.
Because it was only when the women's football team changed to a female coach that they actually had success. I mean, Phil Neville was a disaster. I mean, you look at, and then they changed the coach, and then they won the Euros. So,
yeah, look, I think, as I say, from a rugby point of view, I want to be coached by the best people that know their stuff. I think within your squad and your staffing group, you need women in a women's sport. You do. And probably even in a men's team, you probably need women in that staffing group.
I think they should definitely, if the woman is not the head coach, then she should definitely have a role to play, because it just makes sense. And actually, the development of any coach tends to come from being around the setup. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting one. And moving on to that, the Lions is being talked about as, maybe the women's game having a British and Irish Lions. I'm not quite sure where they're at with that. I think they had the survey. I think it's moving forward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is definitely.
But whether it
studies,
follows the same kind of format or itinerary as the men's is another subject. But I mean, I guess that would be motivation to carry on playing for a bit longer, wouldn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
But is that the best? It's a difficult question. Is that the best way to move the game forward, or is there more that needs to be done in terms of, I don't know, investment and support maybe before that happens?
I think there's more things to move the game forward before that.
Okay.
However, selfishly and from an international's point of view, let's do that first. Yeah.
Let's do it next year.
Yeah. I think, look, there's loads we could do at kind of a grassroots level, spreading the game. Big issue at the moment with no northern teams represented other than Sale. Things like that, there's definite strides that could be made, but yeah, I guess selfishly to have a Lions team, and as rugby traditionalists as well, people connect with the Lions, don't they? So to have an opportunity to do that would be, amazing. But let's make it happen now, quicker. Time's running out.
Next 2 years.
Okay, so we are all very much looking forward to the Women's Six Nations, but before then, we've got 2 more rounds of the men's tournament to enjoy. So we'll have a quick look at the weekend's games, Lawrence, starting with England-France. 18 years since France won at Twickenham.
I know.
That's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's like 2005.
Have England got enough this year to hold that record?
I mean, France, obviously everyone's looked at their performances in the tournament and they're a little bit off somewhere. There's something not quite right, whether they're a bit fatigued, not quite sure. This is a team that have only lost once in the last 18 months, really. They've beaten New Zealand, they've beaten pretty much everyone, and they lost to a very good Ireland side, let's be honest. And they lost over in Dublin, the same team they beat a little while ago, but they don't quite look at the races at the moment, France. Not quite sure. Sean Edwards, as I know very well, as many of you will know, will be having kittens, because they're conceding a lot of tries, which is most unlike them.
What's his French like?
Well, it's sort of Wiganese, isn't it, really?
Oh, okay. So he didn't speak French, I take it. Well,
I think no.
Not to you, obviously, but
I mean, no, he didn't speak English, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But what he is able to do is he's able to communicate the point that he's making. A lot of coaches come in and there's a lot of sort of waffle, if I'm honest with you. What he says is things that actually happen on the field. He teaches you things that are relevant to the game, and he tells you in a very direct manner, so you're under no illusions. Very sharp. He coaches the team, but he also individually improves you as a player. So whenever I look at the teams now, I mean, France could easily lose this game against England because they haven't won at Twickenham since 2005. But if I'm in the French team and we've got genuine aspirations of winning the World Cup in our own country in less than 6 months or whatever it is, you've got to win this game, really, haven't you? You're the second best side in the world. You probably are not far off being the best side in the world. You should really be able to go to Twickenham and beat an understrength, rebuilding England team. Whether that happens or not, they've still got Dupont, they've still got all these amazing players. So, it's going to be fascinating to see what the outcome is.
They're just being very French, aren't they? I mean, that's classic France.
No, but I don't think it is, because they've only lost one game in 18 months. They've beaten everyone. So, it's not a question of... I just think they're a little bit fatigued, really. And I think it shows that they haven't got their first choice props because they're both suspended. So there's still some discipline issues in the French. You can wind them up, you can get under their skin a little bit. So it's
fatigued. That's the only actual French word I remember from French lessons. Je suis très fatigué. Yeah.
You are very good at French, yeah.
Well, I can do the rs, but yeah. Anyway, right. Okay, moving on. Marcus Smith, Steve. He was phenomenal on Saturday, and he just seems to kind of take any news, any pressure just in his stride, doesn't he? And to prove what he proved on Saturday after being released from the squad last week was pretty special. It was
amazing. I mean, I'd be interested at the audience. Hands up, who would start Marcus Smith at the weekend?
Oh, that's like a lot. That's like
quite a lot.
When you look at the stats, Marcus Smith is the best running fly half that we have. He scored 7 tries in 17 tests. George Ford is the best kicker of the ball, without shadow of a doubt. And Owen Farrell is probably the best passer of the ball, believe it or not. If you combine all 3 of them together, you'd have the perfect fly half called Johnny Sexton that plays for Ireland at the moment. But genuinely, I mean, this is only a personal point of view. I think Owen Farrell is a far better player than we give him credit for. Well, I watch him for Saracens week in, week out. There's a lot more in his game than we're seeing for England. So if I'm a coach for England now, I'm saying, and if I'm Owen Farrell, I'm saying, how do I unlock that potential? Because Marcus Smith unlocks that potential every week, and he seems to really want to go for it. And I think Owen Farrell has more in him than we give him credit for. So England won't be an easy watch for the next year and a half, 2 years. I mean, they won't be. Leicester won the title last year under Steve Borthwick, but they weren't easy on the eye particularly.
That was beautiful rugby, Lawrence.
I mean, I am the Antichrist in Leicester, to be honest with you. But no, genuinely, I just think you don't have that much quick ball at international level. You know, Marcus Smith is a player that likes to come onto the ball quite, and run that way. And as a back row forward, honestly, I'd be really excited about playing against Marcus Smith.
If you see Johnny at the weekend, Johnny Wilkinson, you have to ask him about what he was wearing. Well, did you see the pictures of him training? He looked like he got out of bed with his pyjamas on.
Who are you talking about?
Johnny Wilkinson.
He likes an oversized, doesn't he?
I know, the baggy pants that he had on, they were horrendous.
Lawrence shouldn't be asking anyone about fashion, Steve. Let's just leave that there.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio. Six Nations Special.
I'm not sure I want to go on to the next subject, actually.
What is the next subject?
The next subject is Wales, hence why I don't want to be talking about it.
Wales.
But yeah, so Wales are obviously off to Rome. Both teams desperately need a win. How do you see that going?
Well, Wales have had a really, really interesting tournament. New coach, obviously Gatland. You know, I don't know whether he knew genuinely when he re-signed, you know, whether there was that many problems in the whole region. But I mean, if you're Ian Evans, who's just taken over as the chairman of Welsh Rugby, he's having a nightmare, isn't he? Poor bloke. He's probably thinking, I took over. You know, and he is just one of the great men of rugby, one of the great people. He's had obviously the whole issue around the culture of the WRU. Just when he sort of thought that he was coming to terms with that, he's then got players going on strike, etc., etc. So tough week. I thought they did quite well against England. I thought they might have won that game, but England had enough to beat them. I genuinely think that they'll go to Italy and win.
Do you?
I do. I mean, you have to. I mean, if you're Alan Wynne-Jones, you know, you've achieved so much in your career. If you're Justin Tipper, these are great players, great names of rugby. Can't lose to Italy. I mean, if you do, pick a map and choose which island you want to exile yourself to, right? Because you're not coming home. Simple as that. I mean, that would be my attitude. So, lads, if we lose, we're not going back to Wales. I mean, simple as. So.
But the thing is, though, I genuinely think that we're going there as underdogs. Like,
yeah,
am I wrong saying
on
that?
the flip side, the Italians, for all the progress that they've made in the Six Nations, they've got to win this game.
Yeah, they are. But I just think Kieran Crowley is sort of almost every Italian coach has gone in there and it's always been a game plan around damage limitation, box kick, keep it simple, set piece. What he's done is taken them the other way. We're not going to win the game, so let's just not lose trying, you know. So they really go for it. I mean, you can't play like that at international level all the time. You know, their exit strategies when they kick off, they're just running everything. You know, because if you make mistakes like they did against Ireland, all the 4 tries that Ireland scored all came from Italian mistakes in their own half. So, yes, they can win. Unfortunately, the superstar fullback's out injured for the rest of the campaign. But I think Wales will win.
But the thing is that what I think is great about Italian rugby at the moment, like a few years ago, I mean, like Sam Morbin's come out, hasn't he? He's apologised for saying a few years ago that Italy should be chucked out of the Six Nations. And look where they are now. I mean, that's progress.
Yeah, 100%, because they were dull, weren't they, a couple of years ago? Yeah. You didn't want to watch that game. You knew the result of it, etc. Whereas now, it's probably the team you tune in to watch, because they're exciting. Capowatso obviously out injured, which is a huge shame. But they are the team you want to watch. They're the kind of Marcus Smith Harlequins international equivalent at the moment. I love watching them play. I back them against Wales. Sorry. I think why not? At home in Rome. And as you say, they almost need to win inadvertently to
do you know what they really need is they need to be given a Rugby World Cup. We've had one in Japan. We're going to have one in America in 2032. Imagine a Rugby World. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone in this room would go, yeah, I'm going to Italy for that, because it's so much more than just about the rugby, isn't it? So I think that what they've realised is that they're not going to compete with football in Italy. They've streamlined their selection, so they've focused on the schools that actually play rugby, and they've become far more narrow about their selection, a bit like Australian Rugby Union. And it's starting to pay off. And they've got young kids, they're Canali, their captain, Negri, superstar players who have got that belief that they can actually beat anyone.
We've literally spoken 2 minutes about England, about 10 minutes about Italy. But no, that's what
they're
I'm
more
saying.
exciting. I mean,
that's my point. Okay, let's move on to Scotland
Diverts
Island.
from Wales, doesn't it?
It does. Thank you. Okay, let's talk Scotland Island then, Steve. It's the final game of the weekend. It's in Murrayfield. Scotland looking to bag a first Triple Crown since 1990. Have they got it in them to beat this Island team?
No, they haven't. And if you look, sorry if there's any Scots in the house, if you look at the players that Ireland have got back as well, you know, the frontline players, are all returning, and I just think that just makes it even harder for Scotland to get something out of the game. The Irish are on a roll at the moment, and the players that they've now bringing back in just makes them even stronger. It's interesting the niggle that there is between the Irish and the Scots, though. I didn't realise how bad it was. It dates back years. I was listening to it earlier on, but almost as bad as the hatred of the English. But it's got a bit of niggle to it, this game, but I just can't see anything but an Ireland
Anyone
win.
going to beat Ireland for you?
No, but I do love the thought of Finn Russell being an underdog. And just how he will approach that game, and potentially the further bag of tricks we may see in that, trying to win a game that no one's backing them for.
And he's going to be in the Premiership next year.
He is, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating. I mean, the coach that Bath have got, I mean, he's not renowned for playing that type of game, so I can't believe he was responsible for recruiting Finn Russell. But interesting to see who lasts longer there, really. But there we go. I feel that Ireland, again, you're the number one side in the world, and you go into a World Cup to genuinely win it for the first time. You've got to be able to go to Scotland and close out a game. And yes, they've got Finn Russell, and yes, he is, does things that can really turn a game. But Ireland have got a lot of world-class players. Caelan Doris is just off the charts good at the moment as number 8. Tyg Furlong back, Johnny Sexton, Ringrose. There's a lot of quality in that side. I think if you were picking a World 15, about a third of that team would be Irish at the moment.
And they all had a weekend off, and Finn Russell didn't. So it's kind of that.
And he played Sunday, didn't
crazy
he?
anomaly of.
So there is a chance. I mean, look, you get a red card in the first few minutes of the game. Anything can happen now. But I'd back Ireland to win.
Do you know what I love about Ireland at the moment is their penalty moves, slow tap penalty moves from 5 metres out. Best team in the world, and yet we're still pulling the wall and the flick behind the back, stuff like that, reinventing that. Leinster do it loads, don't they?
The old school playground practice ones.
They're not just like, we're best in the world, we do this. They're actually got a bit about them.
And the continuity they've got from the club game that goes into the international.
And they've got an amazing defence coach as well.
Yeah, they have. He's pretty handsome. Okay.
Be a tidy win bonus for winning the Grand Slam, isn't it, Sarra?
He's my husband, by the way. I'm just not falling over some random.
The defence coach.
Okay. We are predicting wins for England.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do.
England.
Always.
Okay.
France.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Sorry, Lol.
Wales and Ireland. Wales and Ireland for me.
Italy.
And Ireland. Okay.
Italy
nice.
and Ireland. Yeah.
Okay, so questions for you guys, the audience, if you can think of some shortly. But Emily, you're going to get tackled by Lawrence.
Tackled.
We always ask everyone these questions. What's your full name, please?
Emily Beth Scarratt.
Emily Beth Scarratt.
Not Bethany.
It's a
Beth.
pretty name, isn't it? What did you have, or what do you have for breakfast as a current playing professional rugby player?
I had 2 poached eggs on 1 slice of marmited toast.
Eggs and Marmite.
Very good.
Is
you like
it?
Marmite?
Anyone else
Eggs
match
and Marmite.
Emily for that particular?
If you like Marmite, you've got to have eggs and Marmite.
Did you get any food at the Palace when you were there or not?
Yeah, I got stuck into the canapes. You could tell who the rugby players were and who were the rugby players.
There was no Marmite at the Palace, that's for sure.
What is the best advice that you've ever been given, either inside or outside of rugby?
I don't know whether it's a direct piece of advice, but I think my family have always instilled in me working hard. Farming family, it's always been about working hard, making the most out of anything that you've been given. I think that's one of the biggest things I'm trying to do always, is just fulfill the potential that I think I've been given.
Good, solid advice.
Would you ever go back to the farm? Your brother works there, doesn't he? Would you ever go back?
On the farm. I would go back to do the unskilled, easy jobs, but I'm not a farmer. But I love going back to the farm.
You like driving the tractor?
I like driving the tractor and the quad bike, but...
Go back for harvest and take the credit, don't you? Who's the most famous person in your address book?
Camilla now, isn't it?
Probably some of the rugby lots. Brian Habana. I'm not going to say Hugo because I don't want to give it him. But
Hugo gives his number out to everyone, trust me.
Brian Habana loves a GIF. Is it a GIF?
Yeah, he loves a GIF.
Doesn't he love a GIF? I don't get messages, I just get GIFs.
Take this offline.
Yeah, no, but they're all clean GIFs, obviously. But he doesn't answer. He just sends a GIF as an answer.
Who would play a film, if they were casting a film about you, who would you see playing you? Who would you like to play you?
For no other reason than she's dark-haired and I like the film she's in, Sandra Bullock.
Nice, I can see that.
Yeah.
Strong. Who's the funniest person that you know, either in the dressing room? Who's the real joker in the dressing room? Who keeps everyone laughing?
Probably Hannah Bottoman. She's really, really good value. Excellent.
Yeah. And if you have to get up and entertain everyone with a little song, Sarra loves
Do you promise
Sarra
if I say
loves
it?
the karaoke. She loves the karaoke. Sorry, was that a Welsh accent?
I don't know what it was,
Okay,
but I do
right.
love a karaoke.
You do love a sing-song, as we all do.
do.
What would you sing?
So I reckon I'd go back to like some of the boy band stuff. So like Five, Westlife.
Same.
Yeah.
We need to go to that place in Soho. What's it called?
I went
Lucky
to see
Voice.
Westlife not long ago.
Were they good?
So good, yeah.
I've never seen
so
Westlife
good.
live.
Well, it's funny you say that. Cue the music.
Yeah, let's get up off the stool.
Right, now the sensible questions. Who is the best rugby player of all time? Who's the person that you just thought, wow?
It's probably not the traditional answer, but growing up, I loved watching Jordan Murphy play. He had way more about him than the caps ever suggested or the honours ever suggested, and I just loved watching the way he went about what he did.
Brilliant. Couldn't agree more. Your most memorable rugby moments are as listed all of your accolades and your achievements, so there's quite a bit to delve into there. But what would you say, out of all of those, was the best rugby moment that you've had?
Probably lifting the World Cup in 2014. It's the obvious one, isn't it? But yeah.
That was a high to go out with. Okay, thanks, Emily. Right, time for our audience questions. Has anybody got a question?
Hi, my name's Hugh David Evans, so you can probably guess the questions about Wales. There's a lot of things that need fixing at the moment, but if you could only pick two, what would they be?
Well, I mean, they could do with finding a pot of gold, couldn't they, really? I mean, I think the challenge for Wales, and I don't really know exactly what's going on there, but is if it becomes too elitist, like ECB cricket contracts, if you're offering a young, talented fly half or centre or whatever they are, £30,000, and he's offered, I don't know, a lot more elsewhere, they're going to lose a lot of players. They're going to lose a lot of their talent. So they're going to have to rethink the model a little bit, I think, because already I'm hearing that there are Premiership clubs and other clubs circling around a lot of the very most talented players in Wales. So
And some of the young ones as well, you know, the ones that haven't got to
yeah,
that.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
so the next generation. So I do
But-
think that there will be a mass exodus, you know, because the game is in financial, I wouldn't say turmoil, but it's in a difficult place. So every union has got to think differently. Steve Borthwick has already said to the RFU, you know, the financial situation in England has changed. I need to be able to pick players that are playing in France or in Japan or anywhere, to be honest with you. So everyone has to think differently because the landscape of rugby has changed.
Controversial, but and particularly for people in Wales, but too many professional teams, 4 down to 2, but which 2 would go? And then would you
all the
have,
best putting that to the regions.
and then would you
But-
have one in southwest London as well, a Welsh province in Ealing, which was the most bizarre story of the week.
Yeah.
Well, they had London Welsh at one time, didn't they, really? So it's not the most bizarre story. I mean, it's, you know, London Irish could, if the ROU really were serious about, you know, they could buy London Irish and they could put all of their Leinster development players who aren't playing, you know, week in, week out into London Irish. I mean, why not?
Yeah, I just think the situation is going to get a lot worse probably before it gets better, unfortunately, for Welsh rugby. Doom and gloom. Anyone else?
Hi, it's Chris Lennon. With the Netflix documentary for the Six Nations and given what it's done for Formula One and for golf, I just wonder what your thoughts were on it, because from what we've read in the press, it doesn't seem to be particularly well welcomed by the players and they don't seem to be sort of running towards it.
It's like anything with players. If things are going well, you love it, don't you, really?
Well, Scars and the Red Roses, you did one with ITV, didn't you, before?
Yeah, I was gonna
First-hand
say,
experience.
I think it's a journey. Like when they first came in, there's cameras all over the place. Everyone's being mic'd up. You feel a bit basically spied on. That's the point, though, right? But it's quite uncomfortable. You know, I've never met these 4 cameramen. I've never met the producer. I don't know who anybody is, etc. So there's an element where you have to build up trust with these people, understand perhaps what it is that they're trying to achieve, but also we're trying to continue to grow our game. So we have a huge role in that in terms of buying into it. We had occasions where people wearing mics and they tap them frantically as they're having a private conversation with someone because they knew that wouldn't then be audible on the recording because it was something we didn't want to put in. But actually, once we built up that trust, we realised it was really important that those conversations were part of it. So you have to have this kind of, one, the trust, but I think you've got to get the players involved from the start, not just tell them it's happening, consult them on it. What are your thoughts on it? Can we do this? Can we do that? All of that sort of stuff, because that's when you get the best stuff out of it. A Netflix documentary where, I don't know, this isn't the example, but you're not allowed in the changing rooms or you're not party to selection discussions, etc. They're the ones where you're half-arsing it, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we did the Living with the Lions, which was one, you know, goes back to '97, and we kind of almost we didn't feel that they were in the changing room, but the reality is that we won that series 2-1, and it was the tightest of series. Now the documentary is legendary because we won the series. Now you can flip it one way and it all looks good and there's some great footage in there. If we'd have lost the series 2-1, there's a lot of footage that could have come out the other way. Do you know what I mean? So I think when you've got the editorial power over any documentary, you know, there's always going to be highs and lows in a season. I mean, if you're in the Wales camp at the moment, I bet the Welsh are going, absolutely no way. We don't want
Yeah, I'm not
cameras
sure they were allowed in.
anywhere near there. But
yeah.
so I think you have to be open about it, but also why are we doing these documentaries? To grow the game, to promote the game. So yes, we want to see people, you know, going through these winning and losing, but we need to portray the game in the right way. So
I'd watch it though. I'm going to watch it. Anyone else?
Yeah, hi, my name is Marion. I work here at QBE. I'm originally from Swansea, and I'm a Scarlets fan. Yay. I was going to ask about Nigel Owens and, the potential joining the Springboks. Do you think there's going to be more recruitment of international referees into coaching teams going forward?
Yeah, I mean, they probably need to give Razzie Erasmus a social media manager. That would probably be another appointment that he needs. That might go out and, World Rugby have punished him for criticising the referee. So maybe this is their way of going, actually, we're trying to put a house in order here. We're trying to bring, one of the best, most respected referees in the world ahead of the World Cup, because having done that, he knows that and the death threats that Wayne Barnes received and his family were disgraceful, by the way. So therefore, how do you, and this is me being slightly cynical, how do you reverse that? You can't apologise, you can apologise, but you can't reverse what you've done, because by criticising Wayne Barnes, the best referee in the world, what he's immediately done is made every single referee look at South Africa very differently. So they're going into the World Cup as champions, and I can guarantee if it's a 50-50 decision, it's going to go against South Africa.
I think referees and coaching setups are going to be really important moving forward. Like, we don't have one in our setup, but we have Sarah Cox, who comes in, referees some of our live stuff, and then disappears again. And actually, her insight as to what they've been talking about at a weekend, the nuance at a breakdown, actually. In our own 22, we're not going to get a penalty for that, but in their 22, we might get a penalty for that. So you can just understand things so that, one, your hotheads aren't chirping away the whole time and pissing them off, but two, you actually can start to manage a game a bit better as well.
Well, Wayne Barnes has been in helping England with scrummaging, and they've said it's made a big difference in terms of the way they're playing. So you listen to the experts, don't you?
I like them as pundits, though, as well.
I do as well. We had Wayne Barnes
on
with us for an evening in the England dressing room the other day, and he's funny. He's very funny.
It's a bright man, isn't he?
He is a bright man.
Next question.
Hi there, Chris Stillman. I coach youth rugby. One of the biggest challenges we have faced is encouraging girls to play the game and keeping them in the game. I just wondered, Emily, if you had any thoughts about what could be done to encourage more girls to try rugby and hopefully keep them in the game.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think what we touched on earlier in terms of trying to get it into schools, I think is really important. I used to do a bit of work just after I left university where I went into schools and just did little taster sessions and things. And there's not many girls that turn around and go, "Miss, I hated that." A lot of them are really energised by it. And look, we were playing tag or touch or a version of something, but there's not many that once they've tried it, they don't like it. And most of them were like, can we do contact? Are we doing contact? And they were actually asking for that. So I think that's huge in terms of just giving girls the opportunity to try it. But obviously that's not changed overnight. I think, us as Red Roses, if we continue to try and be visible and accessible and actually show that young girl, perhaps who's the only girl in her team, that these are the role models, this is what I went through. I was the only girl in my team. I was a bit stubborn, therefore didn't give up like some of, the other girls perhaps did along the way. But yeah, we just kind of keep driving the message.
Can I just say that the participation numbers in rugby across the board, girls and women's rugby is actually going in that direction, whereas men's rugby, for whatever reason, is going the opposite way. So whatever we're doing, we are doing quite well, and we just need to continue to invest in that because more girls are actually playing rugby.
Yeah, you're right what you're saying, but I still don't think there are enough clubs with women's teams, right?
Definitely. And just, I guess, the ease of them being in that club as well, are the female dressing rooms, things like that. Because it's such an easy put-off for a young girl who goes to a club, all the boys disappear somewhere and she's got nowhere to go or to be, and then immediately you're isolated. Immediately, that's not a nice experience, and inevitably you probably don't want to go back again. So there's some really easy wins that can be made at clubs like that.
Okay, next question.
Hi, Will Ponty. I recently hung my boots up because of a concussion. I'm 24. Do you think the game's going soft with the new tackle rule?
I love the way you just said your name, Will. I'm just still thinking about, hi, Will Ponty.
That's
all I'm thinking about.
Just missed your laundry number off the end of it, actually.
No, that's a great question. Lawrence?
Game gone soft. Yeah, listen, it's a very serious subject, concussion. The protocols that exist now didn't exist when we were playing. It's about education with head injuries. When we were playing, didn't realise that there were some serious issues, even though I used to come off the field thinking, that is not good for me, what's just happened there in that 80 minutes. But yes, education is the key. I do think lowering the tackle height is working. I think we're seeing a lot more of that, just good technique. Hopefully we'll get there, but we have to realise that Formula One is quite a dangerous sport. Boxing is quite a dangerous sport. Equestrian is quite a dangerous sport. We live in a sport that is it's physical. There's a lot of contact. But it is different at professional level than it is at amateur level, I genuinely believe. So I think we're getting there.
We'll finish on that, I think. Thank you. That's it from us now. Massive thanks to everyone here at QBE Business Insurance for partnering with us on this episode. Thanks, guys.
And a big thank you to you, Sarra. We hope to see you back on the pod again soon. Thank you to Steve from the Evening Standard. And, of course, our special guest, the brilliant Emily Scarratt. Emily, we hope to see you back on the field, not just coaching, but actually playing.
Thank you.
This podcast will return next Tuesday when we'll chat through the weekend's results and see how well we did with our predictions. Until then, thanks for listening and goodbye.
The Evening Standard Rugby Podcast with Lawrence Dallaglio. Six Nations Special.